All right, let's talk backs, running back. We've talked a lot about the running back position. It's been kind of a source of my frustration. I don't think the investment in the running back position, specifically the depth, has been to my liking. But admittedly, I'm kind of a guy that just says you can't have enough of them. And while many people were saying you avoid drafting them early, I was always one of the people saying that you need to draft them. We did get some good things last year from Joe Mixon. Can that continue? Let's talk about the running backs here on SNL. Landry Locker here, holding it down for Cody Stutes, who's in Louisiana. The latest part of the position series, 6 days away from camp. The good old running backs. How will the Texans be at running back? And let's just get right into Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon last year, one of the best moves they made. One of the latest example of Nick Caserio's ability to pivot. Caserio, they reportedly were in on Saquon Barkley, unable to get a deal done for whatever the reason. The Bengals, meanwhile, decide they want Zach Moss, and they're going to release Joe Mixon, but the Texans go in, make a trade, and don't even allow Mixon to get onto the market. And it ended up paying off. Had it not been for the hip drop tackle, we probably would have seen even more production from Joe Mixon last year. But you got 1,000 yards. Probably should have gotten a little more in the pass game. But Bobby Slowick. 11 touchdowns, 4.1 yards per carry behind a bad offensive line. And a lot of time it felt kind of like he was turning chicken-ish to chicken salad. The workload, 13th in the league, despite the missed games. And you look at how many games he missed. He missed 3, left the Bears game early, and was still 13th in the league in carries. You got to wonder what's up with Joe Mixon. There's whispers that he was banged up in the offseason. Is he going to start out kind of getting some work in, or will he be on the field immediately? That's something to look out for. But the one thing about Joe Mixon is there's going to need to be some help. He just had his 28th birthday. There's going to need to be a little bit more help. And here are the Joe Mixon, non-Joe Mixon yardage stats from last year. And it's kind of skewed because you had 130 yards, 142 yards on 2 carries from Dameon Pierce. But you got 598 yards, 4.9 YPC, and 3 touchdowns. And you've heard the offensive lineman kind of talk about a couple of long carries skewing yards. I got to think that's kind of the message that is being sent by Cole Popovich. But that depth is going to have to continue. And we all know that the running back production can fall off at any time. And usually it happens around the age Mixon is. So it'd be interesting to see how Mixon does and if there's any help and if he is what he was last year. There's also another question about Mixon that I want to get into, but I'll wait when we get to the landlocked questions because it's kind of something nobody's talking about. And it's almost like a cake and eat it too type of dialogue that's going on when we talk about this running back room. I'll explain that in a sec. First, let's go to the super chat. Wags is in the building. You ain't never hate. Swarm. Shout out to Wags. Shout out to Stone Alone 5 times. My guy, we're 6 days away. We've almost made it through this, and the running back position will be interesting to see. Shout out to I Must Pandaline in the chat as well. I'll get to some of the questions a little bit later on as well in the chat. But let's continue. Nick Chubb. A few years ago, Nick Chubb was one of the 5 best running backs in the NFL. He had the awful knee injury, which kind of ended up being not as bad, easy for me to say, as it looked. Came back last year, was not productive, was really, really bad. And the Texans have decided to kind of kick the tires on Nick Chubb. Now, they did this last year with Cam Akers coming off the 2 torn Achilles. Nick Chubb, obviously, at his peak, a higher caliber player than Cam Akers and a higher caliber player probably than Joe Mixon as well. Not probably, definitely at his best. How does Nick Chubb fit into this? I really have kind of leveled the expectations. If he can be a mid RB2, then I think that's great. If he can be a guy that you feel comfortable if Joe Mixon gets hurt, giving the ball 15 to 18 times, great. If he can be a guy that can be a short yardage guy, great. But we heard too much in the offseason. Well, if he is what he was a few years ago, if he is what he is a few years ago, then this is one of the best signings the Texans have ever made. Period, point blank, end of story. Because that would mean you got one of the 5 best running backs in the league, which is what he was for pennies on the dollar. And you already have Joe Mixon. That would completely change stuff. It's just a big ass if. And quite frankly, I think it's an unrealistic if. So we'll see what Nick Chubb looks like. He says he likes where his measurables are at as far as workouts. You could kick the tires on much worse guys. But the battle between Nick Chubb and Dameon Pierce will be an interesting one. And the Dameon Pierce, it seems like the ship has kind of sailed on Dameon Pierce. Anytime that Dameon Pierce shows any signs of performing at a decent level, he ends up getting hurt. And there are times where for extended stretches, we don't see Dameon Pierce produce. Now, the rookie season was nice. Apparently, he had a hard time learning the system the next year, and there's some other stuff going on. And then last year, we saw the 2 runs. But outside of that, he never really established himself as RB2. Did look like a decent kick returner. You got to think the Dameon Pierce ship has kind of sailed, but who knows? Maybe this system, we talked about this yesterday in the locker room, and we said this was a little bit like Bill O'Brien's system. John Mechie and Andrews have both said this is Bill O'Brien's system. They played for Bill O'Brien. They said this is Bill O'Brien's system. Now, maybe there's some differences, but those are exact quotes from the guys. But maybe this system, which is kind of a lot more similar to what Dameon Pierce ran his rookie year, maybe this system benefits Dameon Pierce. I really don't know. I'm kind of tired of the excuses because that was his first year in that system and he did fine. And then all of a sudden there's a first year in a different system and all of a sudden it's the worst thing. So there's been a lot of excuses for Dameon Pierce. He's a likable guy, but he can't stay healthy. He can't consistently produce. Singletary was better than him in year 2. And then last year, it was just kind of mid. There was a couple mop-up duty, long touchdowns. The excuses are done for Dameon Pierce, and this is the last year that he's on his rookie deal. Polarizing-ish, easy to root for, but I just kind of thought that ship had sailed, but here we are. Dameon Pierce is competing with Nick Chubb and really just a bunch of guys for RB2. They haven't done much to really weed Dameon Pierce out. There really hasn't been any significant movement to where you kind of weed him out to where he's still got a chance, I guess, heading into camp. I wouldn't bet on it though. Then we go to the running back they traded up for. Bit of a surprise, given some of the names that were available. But Woody Marks out of USC, one of the more productive receiving running backs in college football in recent years. A little bit older, very experienced, probably a little bit bigger than I thought he was when we saw him. But Woody Marks, the good thing that they did in New England when Kaylee was there and Kaylee was able to kind of observe and be a part of things was they would always have the running back who could catch the rock out of the backfield. They always had it. You always saw it. James White was the guy for a long time. They had Danny Woodhead. If Woody Marks could be that would be nice. I don't know how Woody Marks fits in. I just want to see what he looks like in camp. But they traded up for him. Doesn't seem like kind of a workhorse, bell cow type of dude. More so of a receiver. So we'll keep an eye on him. They can't quit Dare Ogunbowale. Dare Ogunbowale, still in the building, still here. I don't know how. They love him on special teams. He knows where to be. And Dare Ogunbowale is just still here. He's still here. The plays that he makes, they get a little bit glorified. but he's still here. Dare Ogunbowale. They cannot quit him. On the super chat, the man, the myth, the legend, HDAV Traveler. Howdy, friend.
You ain't never hate.
Swarm.
Dare Ogunbowale. Can't quit him. Then a guy last year who was going to make the team. He was going to make the team as a fullback / tight end / special teams contributor, British Brooks. I don't know what this looks like for him. He is not competing at the fullback position. There's only one. It's Jan Johnson. But British Brooks is there. I just don't know what this looks like. Don't know what this do they eventually move him back to fullback? Is he trying to make the squad at running back? I could easily see him hanging around practice squad or something. But British Brooks, preseason hero last year, just kind of here at this point. And the special teams quality as well, and the investment in special teams has gone up to where I think there's probably a tougher path from like a traditional coverage standpoint of making the team. So it's going to be kind of an uphill battle for one of the feel-good stories of training camp last year. Then we go to J.J. Taylor. J.J. Taylor's interesting. There were times last year where very small blurs, you saw J.J. Taylor kind of do some things. I do think something that nobody's talking about is the fact that J.J. Taylor was in New England for 2 years when Nick Caley was there. He actually had a 2-touchdown game, believe it or not. So he was there when Caley, I believe, was the tight end coach, but he was in New England and he somehow scored 2 touchdowns in a game, which is surprising. He only has 44 yards total, but he had 2 touchdowns in a game in 2021, one of their blowout dubs. But he was in New England in 2020, 2021. So in 2022. So maybe Nick Caley has an opinion about him. I doubt it's too strong of an opinion, but he does have one. Perhaps kind of a nobody's talking about there with J.J. Taylor. And then there's Jawar Jordan. Jawar Jordan, I will say, when it comes to kick return and perhaps playing your way onto the team, he did probably have the most juice in kick return drills during minicamp and OTAs, for whatever the hell that's worth. Might not be worth much. I don't know that there's going to be a situation where he's so valuable in that area that they decide to keep him on the roster. But stranger things have kind of happened than like one of these guys at the bottom playing their way onto the team, especially with all the question marks at this running back position outside of Joe Mixon. But I will say Jawar Jordan did have a little bit, probably the most juice at kick return of all the backs. The top 5 RB questions coming up in a sec. First, though, let's talk about Bobtac. We all love Bobtac. Shout out to everyone that has taken advantage of the great service that Bobtac provides with the safety equipment for your company. Go to bobtac.com, 409-744-8225. These big companies that claim to get it done, all they do is take your money. They don't care about you. They don't care about customer service. That's not the case at Bobtac. They'll deliver to you, and they'll do so for free. Locally owned, operated, 45 years industry experience. Bobby's been doing his thing. His son, Reed, helps him as well. PPE, spill control, trucking, maritime, gloves, FR coveralls, protective clothing, all of it. If you work at a chemical plant, trucking, maritime, just check it out. There's probably something for you that you could even use at home if you want to be safe and you're working out in the yard. Just go to bobtac.com. They got you covered. Great people, locally owned and operated, local businesses. They're not any weaker. People are just getting lazy and not really looking into it. But Bobtac is definitely worth it. So check it out. Whether you're using hazmat, spill control products, trucking, maritime supply, Reed's a good dude, and Bobby's been doing his thing. So Bobtac, 409-744-8225. Text him because that is his real number. No AI there, my friend. Trill Kick X asks if Bobtac has a safety blanket for CJ. Maybe he does. Maybe he does. Check the website and see what's going on with that. The running back position. 5 questions about the RBs. And then we'll get to some of the comments. Cody is at the casino. He's rolling craps. He's doing whatever the hell else he does. He's probably got a couple of beverages in his hand. And he is recharging for training camp, which is 6 days away. The running backs. 5 questions. Landlocked 5 questions about the RBs. Be sure to subscribe, by the way, to this channel. Like the video. Also, subscribe to the locker room. We talked about the return of BOB's offense yesterday. Go check that out. Like that video. And join me every day at 10:30. Football fans are going to be staying up late coming up soon. We go to bed early. Or some people do go to bed early when the season's not going on, but about to be late again, 10:30 every day for the last 3 years. 5 questions about the backs. 5 questions about the backs. And if I miss a question, just put RB ? If you want to add to the questions that I ask. 5 questions about the running backs. Starting with number 1. How will Mixon hold up? How is Joe Mixon going to hold up? 28 years old. Doesn't seem like there's a lot behind him on the surface right now. This is why running backs get undervalued. This is around the age where they get undervalued, where Joe Mixon is. And then you hear the chatter about him being in a boot in the offseason. You wonder how he's going to look. You saw him get hurt last year with the illegal tackle. How will Joe Mixon hold up? And are they so dependent on him that it's one of the non-negotiables? That's one of the problems when it comes to the concerns at the running back position when it comes to depth. There's a lot of intrigue. There's a little bit of upside based on what you would expect after Mixon, but it would be nice if the guys behind Mixon made it to where he wasn't asked to do as much. Question 2. I think this is another element with the Joe Mixon thing. How does this system impact backs? Because we've heard the system excuse for Dameon Pierce now for 2 years. And I always kind of roll my eyes at it because, as I said earlier, his rookie season, that was the first time he ran that system. Really. And then the next system's a little bit more difficult. And now we're back to a new system, which is considered kind of a hybrid when it comes to backs. But backs, when it comes to running backs, the system does matter. Now, I will say with the Rams, and Nick Caley was with the Rams, it's Sean McVay's offense, but Sean McVay was willing to evolve from kind of a zone running scheme to kind of a gap scheme. So he is willing to evolve. So it'll be interesting to see if Nick Caley is able to do that. Because the other thing that nobody's talking about is when we talk about how this system will impact Dameon Pierce, how does it impact Joe Mixon? Because that was one of the things about Joe Mixon last year. And one of the appeals of him joining the team in that Kubiak system was, well, he's been doing this, a similar system to this. So it fits him perfectly. Is this system, the new system that they have, is it going to cater to the skills of Joe Mixon? Now, I think Joe Mixon's the type of guy that can work in most systems, but it does matter. There are some really good running backs that work in system A and they don't work in system B. Now, a lot of times it gets overanalyzed and it's just basically who gives a damn. The guy can just straight up ball out. And a lot of times the offensive coordinator is able to adjust. He doesn't try to fit a square peg into a round hole, which has been kind of one of the things that Caserio, Caley, and D'Amico have preached when it comes to moving on from Bobby Slowick. But I do wonder how this system fits the skill set of Joe Mixon, how it fits the skill set of Dameon Pierce, and how it fits the skill set of Nick Chubb, who comes from the Stefanski system the last few years. So the system will be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how it impacts the running backs. It's been described as Bill O'Brien's system. Now, Nick Caley has described it as kind of hybrid. But the terminology, the offensive linemen, the receivers, the two guys that have played for Bill O'Brien, they seem to say it's very O'Brien-like. You know, a lot of people throwing up in their mouth. I think the bigger problem with the system was the guy, not necessarily the overall system, but it does absolutely matter. Question number 3, who wins the RB2 battle? Who wins the RB2 battle? That is likely between Dameon Pierce and Nick Chubb. I think in a perfect world, Nick Chubb is able to hold it down. He looks like a better version, more reliable version, less whiny version of Cam Akers. And you have Nick Chubb, a battle-tested guy in there holding it down. That's best case scenario when it comes to RB2. Dameon Pierce, we'll see. But who wins RB2? I think those are the two guys that we're looking at. The other guys you kind of push back behind that, which brings us to question 4. Can anyone beat out Dare Ogunbowale? Like, is there any path for any of these guys on special teams to beat out Dare Ogunbowale and provide perhaps more upside at the running back position? They just can't quit Dare. But let's say Jawar Jordan is the most explosive kick returner. And let's say there is a little bit of juice with Jawar Jordan. And let's say that JJ Taylor, who's been in this New England system when Kaylee was in New England, scored a 2-touchdown game, as we previously mentioned. Let's say that he has a little bit of juice and he can contribute on special teams. Will that be enough to kind of beat out Dare Ogunbowale? God bless Dare Ogunbowale. If everybody maximized, y'all have heard me say this before, their God-given ability like Dare Ogunbowale, the term underachiever would be extinct, like the dinosaurs and like Quiznos restaurants. But Dare has hung around. Is there any way crazier things have happened than someone outplaying and beating out Dare Ogunbowale? Can anyone do that? Wouldn't bet on it, but that is kind of where the intrigue is. You divide it into kind of thirds. Mixon's at the top. Then you got Pierce and Chubb, and then you got the rest of the guys, and it feels like Dare Ogunbowale is always safe. Question 5, will they use a fullback? Jan Johnson's been out there. He's got experience. Is this something that they want to do? I will say he had experience with McDaniels, I believe, and he had experience in New England. So he knows this system very well. He does look like he catches the ball just based on my small time in viewing him. He does catch the ball close, better than he gets credit for, but how does he block and do they use a fullback? That'll be something to really, really keep a close eye on because it can kind of impact the way in which the roster construction goes. How many running backs do they keep? Do they keep a fullback? He's really the only one that they're looking at. And I mean, if you look at the guys that they brought in that they're familiar with, Trent Brown's been very involved despite not even being on the field. Andrews is the starting center right now and kind of sounds like he knows what the hell he's doing. How does Johnson fit into this? I don't know. Will they keep a fullback? It's going to be one of the more interesting, nerdy-ass things that we pay attention to. So those are the 5 RB questions on the SNL Countdown to Camp position preview. The dang running backs here on SNL. Landry Locker, Cody Stutes out there in Louisiana holding it down. We'll see how it goes. My daughter's trying to run in on me. She didn't kill the show yesterday. She killed the show yesterday with the start. How's she doing? What are you doing? Come here. Oh, Bo, you want your bow in? Stand by. Mama's not home. Hi. Hi. All right, so we'll go to the chat real quick. She's ready for football season. JB Allen, the Annihilator, says, back again. Anyways, I watched Cody on the CD. You watched CD on the Pivot podcast, and that boy ain't right. He's off his rocker. He's a loose cannon. He's got the juice. We all know that. A lot of the stories that he tells, I'll be honest, like I don't get it. Like sometimes it seems like he says one thing 1 minute and then he says something different the next. Like he said he'd move on from Philadelphia. Then he said he was motivated. Then there was like some Sean Payton story as to why he's him. There's a lot going on there. He does seem to be the please retweet me guy on the team, though. There does seem to be a little bit of that. Let me tag, please retweet me, CD. But yeah, I like what he brings. But yeah, he's obviously got a little bit of juice and a little bit extra. Knuckles, what position depth are y'all really willing to give up, be weaker in for another you deem more as significant? I mean, I think the fullback position will kind of depend on how they handle the running backs. I think we're pretty much set at 6 wide receivers making the team, but I think that will be kind of where they're at. There, I think the fullback will figure it out. Esco says Chubb came to Houston for a reason. He could have gone to another team. I have no idea what that means. Yeah, he came here for a reason for sure. He could have gone to another team. Okay. Cliff says we need to keep a couple of young guys. Mixon and Chubb are up in age. Who? I guess Marks is the only one. Outside of that, I mean, you can find young backs if you really commit to it. You can find them relatively early in the process. But I don't think they have like just an array or an option of young backs. Brandon says probably keep him 5 HBs going into the season. I think it's going to be 4 and maybe a fullback, but I don't see 5, but who knows? Patrick says Cody's hanging out in Lake Charles until he has to come back and restock on Super Chats. Yes. That is definitely the Cody type of thing. CD, 1 minute he sounds like he's looking for revenge. The other minute he kind of sounds like he's kind of moved on. Can't keep up. But the running back position I do find fascinating. Wide receiver position I find interesting, but I'm not looking at it wondering, okay, who do I think is going to be on this team? I feel like we have a pretty effing good idea of who is going to be here. So that's the difference between like the fascination at wide receiver. For wide receiver, it's basically, well, how are they going to look like when they line up? How are they going to be used? And then it's like, how are they going to impact actual games? With the running backs, it's like, what does this look like? The rotation, how do you feel about them? There's a lot more there. Offensive line, you don't feel good about any starters. I guess you think Cam Robinson's the one for sure starter. Tight ends, just kind of meh. You're kind of stuck with it. Maybe there's a under the radar battle at the 3rd tight end, but that's the beauty of camp. It can emerge, storylines can emerge, and we got you covered here on Houston Football Locker Room SNL. That's the running back chat. Appreciate everyone for coming through. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to like. Be sure to ride along. And be sure to check out the Locker Room nightly at 10:30. If you want to go back and check out the BOB video, as well as revisit some of these questions, go ahead and do so. Shout out to Bobtac. Reminder, give them a call. Let them take care of that safety. These large businesses that have been taking advantage of everyone. Appreciate y'all for rolling through. Subscribe, like, ride along. Always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together. What does Cody say? Eat good, sleep good, be good. We'll talk Texans again soon. Thanks for watching, everybody.